Hey everyone, welcome to the 430th episode of the Internet of Things podcast. This is your host, Stacey Higginbotham, and your co-host,
Kevin Toffel.
That's right, y'all. He's back. And we have a lot to talk about. Actually, it's a holiday week, so we don't have that much to talk about, but there's enough. We're going to be talking about some news from Apple. We're going to be talking about Matter badges and labeling. We're going to be talking about a startup that we're pretty skeptical about. And we've got new Z-Wave gear from Shelly. We've got some new Matter gear from a new company. We've got an update on Swarm satellite technology for IoT. And we've got the completion of an acquisition of Jamie Simonoff's secretive Honest Days Work company. And our guest this week is JJ Lechleiter, who is at the Vuforia division of PTC, and we're going to be talking about what Apple's Vision Pro means for mixed reality in manufacturing settings. And we'll also hear from our sponsor, Blink. So, all of this and more await you. It's going to be super fun. But first, a message from another one of our sponsors. And this week's sponsor is Particle. Do you have an idea for a connected product? Apply for a Particle development board and build your prototype on Particle's platform at no cost. Plus, you can benefit from up to 100,000 data operations per month and support for up to 100 different devices. You can get started today by going to iotpodcast.com/prototype. That's iotpodcast.com/prototype. It's a little different URL there for y'all, so pay attention. Okay, let's talk Apple, because why not, Kevin? First off, I guess I should actually ask you, how was your vacation? Did you have a good time?
I did. I survived. We went to Utah, St. George, Utah for about 6 days and did some hikes, about 40 miles of hiking, and then recouped in Vegas for a couple nights, which is actually boring to us now.
Oh my goodness. It's probably because it wasn't CES and you weren't tramping all over the place looking at new gadgets.
Well, no, because even then it's like, Vegas. I think we've just been there too much. I mean, I've been there at least 20 times between CES and vacations, and my wife used to go out there with me from time to time, and she liked it, and that's why we stayed after Utah. But yeah, it's like, she's like, I'm kind of done. I think we're just getting old.
No, terrible.
Yeah.
Okay. It sounded like there was no really exciting IoT stuff that you got to see in your travels.
No. I scanned a lot of QR codes for the first time in ages, but that was just to pay bills or get information about Zion National Park, where we were hiking one day, or whatever else I need information on. Other than that, yeah, like I saw no IoT stuff. I didn't have a phone with me most of the time. I was really disconnected, which, God, it was so good. It really was. Good.
Okay. Well, you're back in the grind now. Let's talk about Apple's AirPod plans. This is something, basically the rumor, according to Mark Gurman, who is pretty darn good at Apple rumors, that Apple is going to add some more features and functionality to the AirPod earbuds, turning them into more of a wearable device. So now it's going to track things like temperature and maybe some hearing health stuff. And I don't know, I've talked to lots of people. You can get galvanic skin response, so stress kind of readings from inside your ear. I don't know if Apple's ever going to do that. You get heartbeat. You could probably even track steps with the proper algorithm. And some of this is related possibly to the launch of the Vision Pro, or the showing off of the Vision Pro, because, with good mixed reality or that entertainment level that they showed off, you're going to need earbuds, something to hear what's interfacing with the headset itself. So I don't know. I mean, you're an Apple user, so you've got AirPods or the AirPods Pro. I don't know which ones.
Yeah, actually, I bought the AirPods Pro, the latest generation. It's not that I needed new earbuds, because being a minimalist, I kind of just replace things. I don't just go out and get all the latest and greatest stuff anymore. But I bought these on purpose for all of the augmented hearing functions that they bring today. And with that, I mean, I was able to do like an audio test using an app and basically kind of like what an audiologist would use. And then it created a profile for my hearing loss, what frequencies were lower than normal, et cetera. And then I can actually upload, and I did upload that audio profile into Apple Health, and that put it into the AirPods. So the algorithm actually boosts those frequencies for me. So I don't need hearing aids yet I still have problems hearing in certain conditions or certain frequencies. These really, really help. Like I wear them every day just for that reason. And that's really why I bought them. So apparently Apple is continuing to make progress on that. We're planning progress because Gurman's reporting they're looking to potentially make these available as like over-the-counter hearing aids, which would be the next step, right?
Yeah, he mentions that Apple's hired people for this. I don't think these are he's talking about adding an audiology app or functionality to the headphones. So you, I think, used the Mimi app, right? When you were testing your hearing and then you imported that into your Apple Health Kit?
Correct. That's a free app that's available on mobile platforms. So for anybody who wants to try it and get a hearing test, it's a great way to do it.
Yeah. So basically, Apple's going to take out that step and they'll manage that for you because you kind of wrote an article about how to do a workaround to make them function more like hearing aids. I think it sounds like Apple in this latest iteration is going to add temperature tracking and make it easier to do what you did for people who aren't familiar with like using the Mimi app and downloading it into HealthKit and that sort of thing. And then over time, it seems reasonable and pretty clear that Apple would want to get in on the over-the-counter hearing aid. And he says that they've hired some engineers from existing companies like Starkey and that sort of thing.
Right. And it makes sense. I mean, I don't have stats in front of me, but if I had to guess, I think it's a reasonable assumption that AirPods are probably the most sold brand or model of earbuds in the world is my guess. Maybe short of some cheapy knockoffs that sell a lot just because they're cheap. So Apple already has what I think is a big head start in this market, and now adding more sensors to maybe bring more. I don't want to say more accurate, but I'll just say better temperature data to people. Like if you don't wear an Apple Watch, you're not getting any temperature data, but body temperature, right? But you probably have AirPods, so you can take advantage of that if they add those sensors.
Yeah. And yeah, we've seen this. I mean, part of where our future is headed is we're going to have a couple different wearable devices on our body, some of which, like we might have the watch, which we wear most of the time, and then the hearing aid / earbuds that we'll wear when needed. And we might have tiny sensors in our clothes or maybe our shoes for gait detection or that sort of thing. So, I see this heading that direction, and this fits. The more smarts you can add, the better.
Yeah, absolutely.
Also, Apple is making some changes to its badges. Aha!
Badges. Yes. Apple showed off 2 new, I'll say, smart home badges at WWDC last month. 2 works with Apple AirPlay badges. One is for speakers, one is for displays. They also have already embraced the Matter badge. But if you go to their webpage for the home app accessories, there's no longer any mention of HomeKit, and there is no HomeKit logo. It is now works with Apple Home. So it seems as though there's a transition there. And I've seen some other, in fact, I have a box here right now that already has this works with Apple Home. So I think HomeKit is kind of going away from a consumer-facing badge or tag. And that makes total sense to me because HomeKit is not an app. It's not I guess you could call it an experience, but what it really is a smart home framework. It's for developers. Developers use the HomeKit SDK, but you don't use the HomeKit app to manage your home. You use the Apple Home app. So this makes total sense to me.
Yeah. And for the rest of it, like this is really nitty gritty news and you probably won't even notice. But well, I mean, the badge itself looks similar enough. It's got the little orange house on it. So you may not notice Apple Home versus HomeKit.
It's not a house, it's a home.
Why, Kevin? Why?
Sorry, because it says works with Apple Home. It doesn't say works with Apple House.
Fair enough.
Okay.
It has a square topped by a triangle that indicates a home / house. Anyway, so you may not notice, it's very subtle, but just in case you do, and you're like, wait a second, what the heck is this? And then, we'll link to it. But Kevin wrote a story kind of explaining where we are with different badges and where we might see issues coming up.
They're all kind of changing. And I think the big impetus here is the Matter badge. Because once you have the Matter badge, then you have to discern, well, do I have a HomeKit house or do I have an Apple Home house that works with Matter, right? So you'll know which way to go depending on the badging. Google works with Hey Google, works with Google Assistant. Now they've gone to works with Google Home, which makes sense. We got rid of works with Nest. We got rid of all the many logos and badges that they've had. Amazon still works with Amazon Alexa. And that I get, even though to me, Alexa is an interface, not a smart home system. Just like I wouldn't say Siri is my smart home. I'd say Siri is how I interact with my smart home, or Google is, Hey G is who I interact with. So that's not a big change, but you also have now you got still two confusing bits with Amazon. You've got Thread now has been enabled in the 4th gen Echo, and Matter, which is also with the 4th gen Echo. They're just doing Matter over Thread. I have to think about this now. That means that Echo device can work as a Thread border router. They've also added Matter support to the 2nd gen Echo, the Echo Plus, and the Echo Dot devices, but there's no Thread radio in there, so they can only be Matter controllers. So they maybe works with Matter badged, but they're not going to be working with Matter if you don't have a Thread border router, I guess. It's a mess. You've also got Amazon Sidewalk as a logo, which should, I think, be changed to show if it works over Bluetooth and or over the 900 megahertz frequency, because you may buy a Sidewalk device like the Level Lock and think the range reaches really far from your Echo, but it's going to work over Bluetooth. It's no different than before. It just happens to, quote unquote, work on Amazon Sidewalk. So that's a whole logo mishmash there. And then there's Samsung, which I don't want to say I've given up on Samsung, but they've changed their position so many times. The hardware, no hardware, hardware again, cloud services. Yeah, Matter controllers only.
I will work with multi-admin on a special basis only with Google and Amazon because I've worked with them on making this work, but nothing else. And so, it's complicated.
Right. Like, perfect example, if you have the old SmartThings hub from 2015, it supports Matter now, but only if you have a third-party Thread border router, they say. Because there's no Thread radio on that hub. If you have the 2018 hub or the AOTech, which is even newer, there are Thread radios in there, and they can act as border routers. So it's not like anybody's going out to buy the 2015 SmartThings hub, but still, it's just a confusing message, in general. In the article, I did mention, and our readers will obviously be familiar with, our listeners will be familiar with these names. I mentioned Home Assistant and Habitat mainly because they support pretty much all of the wireless protocols and are either working on or promising Matter support in the near future. And Home Assistant does have Matter beta support, and I tested that about a month ago, and so far so good. So there's no badging involved there. You just gotta add your own stuff as you see fit. So,
all right, let's talk about the future. For probably the last decade, we've been really focused on what comes after the smartphone, right? Just tech reporters in general. We're like, oh, what comes after these slabs of glass that would come around? So, that's one of the reasons why we're so excited about the Vision Pro. We're like, oh my gosh, is it headsets? And most people are like, no, it's not face computers. How are we going to interact and bring more intelligence to our day-to-day life in a way that gets us away from staring at a screen? Sure. So I don't know if this is it, but, and we didn't talk about this. So back at TED 23, and this was in April, we saw founders talking about the humane AI pin. And I can't remember if they said it was a pin or not, but the idea was there was going to be a wearable device that could bring in, because this is the new hotness, AI everywhere. And the idea, again, is that you have this wearable that shows you things you need to see, like who's calling on your phone, that sort of thing, but it allows you to interact with your day-to-day life without having a screen in front of you, which many people would like.
Yeah, it does have a projector they showed in the demo. And so you can see who's calling based by putting your hand in front of the pin, and it'll just project, the name of the caller and so on. We got a small bit of the overall demo back in April, but it's recently the whole demo's been put out and a press release. Still very limited details.
Yeah, they launched that it would be a pin. So they're calling it the Humane AI pin. It is going to have a camera. It is going to have that projection capability. The camera is going to allow it to take information from around you, like calorie counting a meal that you might have, or I don't know. I always think when I see cameras like this and AI together, I'm like, oh, it could tell you who, like this stranger that's walking up to you could be like, oh, that's Jim from such and such, if you know them.
It's kind of like the devices in the fictional movie Her.
Exactly. Now, they're working with Qualcomm to build this, and I should tell you that the founders are Imran Chowdhury and Bethany Bongiorno, and they've had a pretty storied career. Both of them were at Apple. So everyone's like, ooh, these guys are geniuses. We're going to see this cool device. I should note that you really can't tell what the device is, the size of it. We have no details about how this is going to work.
Connectivity, battery.
Yeah, battery life. It's designed to clip to your breast pocket. As a woman, I can tell you that I don't have a breast pocket.
Nor do I, as a man.
Yeah. So you got to get that pocket. Although, we did see pocket sizes change in response to like the iPhone and that sort of thing. So it's possible we could see that happen here. It's going to have, like I said, a camera. It's going to help you translate. It'll be able to do phone calls. It'll recognize objects around it because it's going to have some computer vision built in. And it'll have that projector and a depth sensor to project some interactive keyboard, or probably not a keyboard, but like an interface onto surfaces like your palm or a table, a wall.
You started this part out by saying we've been looking for this for 10 years. And in some ways, some products have claimed to have conquered this and done this, and it's never panned out. And I'm at the point now where, I saw a canned demo, but I am still skeptical. Even though I was impressed by what they did, without the details, and really even some hands-on would be great, I'm still skeptical. I love the concept. I don't know if it's really real in a sense.
Yeah. So that's why we didn't talk about it back in April. I was like, oh yeah, whatever. Neat,
another one of those, yeah.
I really feel like Apple is doing a good job with their devices in making an ecosystem of devices. But I think any device, even like the Humane, is going to have to work in conjunction with other devices that you're going to have on your person, like your smartphone, like a wearable hearing aid, that kind of thing. And if these guys push another, look at the functionality that the phone plus the Apple Watch plus the earbuds get you. That's really impressive.
It is, but let me just backtrack a second, because I'm not necessarily disagreeing with you, but I will say I leave my phone at home all the time. In fact, I didn't even carry a phone with me when we were doing our hikes, which is fine because there's not a lot of cell service out in the canyons and whatnot anyway. I carried a different phone actually with no SIM card. I carried the Pixel 7 Pro, and I use that for photos because I like the photos better. My Apple Watch really is all I take and wear with me for what I need, for phone calls, for text messages, and just a few other things. Like you and I maybe chat on Google Chat about, the show or something. And I do it all by voice, and it can do an awful lot. I don't even use all the features. Depending on how they do this, it's possible it may not need that primary device.
All right. Well, there you go. See, your problem is you're not addicted to social media, nor are you.
It's taken me a couple years to get away from it. That is correct.
That would be kind of nice. That could be a benefit of having this device and not a phone to be relying on.
It's so freeing. It's so freeing not to carry a phone.
I'm not going to spend any more time on this because I don't know if it's really real. So we'll see if it becomes real, and then we'll spend more time on it. Okay, let's talk about Shelly. Y'all may remember I've had the CTO here on the podcast. They are a Bulgarian company. They used to be known as Alterco, but they actually, in June of this year, changed their name to Shelly Group. So Alterco Robotics used to be the company, and now it's Shelly Group formally. Their brand had always been Shelly. So Shelly has made inroads in the US. They came to the US during the pandemic with these kind of modules that controlled electricity. And they were actually doing really well in the pro and the enterprise market here and would like to do better in the smart home. But they have announced new Z-Wave products. And they've announced them first. They did a product demo last week, like a little event to show off new products. And they showed off two Z-Wave PM modules. Those are the electricity controllers that will function on Z-Wave. And then they showed off a new Bluetooth door and window sensor that's a little slimmer and fancier. The Z-Wave stuff is supposed to launch in mid-July. It's listed right now only on their European site. And in Europe, they have a different standard for Z-Wave. They have a different, it runs on a different frequency. A lot of the chips for Z-Wave devices are dual mode. So they run an R standard here in the US and in the European standard. So it may not be an issue. But I just thought it was interesting that we're seeing the launch of new Z-Wave products, even though Matter doesn't support Z-Wave. And we get a lot of questions from people that are like, should I stick with Z-Wave? So look for those in July or possibly later here in the US. And in other new product news and Matter news, we've got a new company and a smart button that works with Matter using Thread. This is the 2.0 smart button. That's TUO. Mm-hmm. And it'll integrate with any of your Matter systems. It lets you control things with a physical button that I love. Clicks, double click, and long press. So that's 3 options. And
yeah, it's $35. It's available in the US for $35. Yeah, I guess it's already available. They're supposed to ship this July. They also have, at least their accessories website has a contact sensor with Matter support and a smart lock with Apple HomeKey, which I absolutely love that type of functionality because I use my Apple Watch to unlock my front door all the time. But this is a company I hadn't heard of before.
Yeah, I still really haven't heard of it, but it's there. We'll maybe.
I heard about it on your show.
I figure I'll buy this device and see if it works because y'all know I love a good button. And I have a bunch of Flick buttons. That's FLIC. The Flick Twist will support Matter, but my Flick buttons are possibly going to get Matter, but they really haven't updated it. And so I don't know when that's going to happen. So I am in the market for smart buttons that support Matter.
Those Flick buttons, as nice as they are, they're also not inexpensive. When you buy like, what you get a 3-pack and a little gateway, I think, for like $120.
Yeah, but the additional buttons are not as much. I figure, are they $30 a button?
Actually, that's probably about right. My thought here is like with the 2.0, you don't need a gateway. You just need some type of Matter.
Well, that's not true. I need a gateway. It just is any other Matter certified Thread border router is what I need.
Right, right. Yeah. What I'm saying is you don't need a dedicated gateway just for those buttons, for the Flick buttons, like you do now. That's what I'm saying.
That is true.
Yeah.
So
less is more in my house. So.
Well, yeah. I mean, it would be in my house. I just have. I'm like, if you've got Bluetooth buttons and you want them to work when your phone isn't around, you need a hub.
No, I know. That's why I never bought Bluetooth buttons because I don't really carry a phone anymore.
But I love buttons so much.
Okay, well, try the 2.0s.
I'm trying the 2.0s. I'm buying it as we speak.
Ba-bam.
Here we go. Let's see. Am I done? Oh, see, with shipping, it's shipping and taxes. Now I'm at $40. So, all right. So now I've bought the 2.0 buttons. I'll let you know what I think. Okay. In more industrial news, we have some news from Swarm. Swarm, if you remember, was the company that SpaceX purchased in 2021, and they were launching small satellites into space for an IoT network. And y'all are like, but SpaceX was launching a broadband network. And when SpaceX bought them, we were kind of like, does SpaceX want an IoT network? No, SpaceX wanted Swarm's engineers, which are really good with small sats and just good satellite engineers. And they really are. The founders are very, very good. And SpaceX then later launched a deal with T-Mobile that was going to do satellite to cell phones. And we're seeing a ton of that now. We've had a ton of guests on the show to talk about how we're adding satellite connectivity to cell phones. You see it with Apple, Qualcomm's supporting their version of it. And that's also for IoT. And what's happening, I believe, Swarm is no longer going to sell their original satellite only, so their VHF network. They're no longer going to sell new devices. They're totally going to keep supporting. So if you have I had a little Swarm dev kit that provided me with satellite service, and I think it was $5 a month for their satellite service. So it was pretty good. And this was for people who were mostly prototyping, but I assume some people built products and put them out in the world using this. Those will still be supported. They actually even recently launched a new satellite to support the VHF customers. And they say they have a launch that's planned for 2024. So that's still happening, but they're not going to sell anymore. And really, if you read between the lines, what's going to happen is Swarm is going to eventually go direct to sell like everybody else has.
Right.
And
makes sense.
So it does. And so if you're a Swarm customer and you're using the VHF network, don't freak out, but I would actually start planning for the direct to sell in the probably 3 to 5 year time frame. So hopefully you didn't launch any long-standing devices out in the field. I don't know. And then this is just a little update. We spent a lot of time talking about Latch OS acquiring Honest Day's Work, which was Jamie Siminoff's company. This Jamie Siminoff founded Ring. And in May, basically, it was big news that Latch was going to spend a lot of money buying this secretive startup that no one had heard of and was going to get Jamie. And that deal was supposed to close on July 3rd. And lo and behold, it did. So that's great. Latch is going to have all of Honest Day's Work's assets, and that includes $8 million in cash and 30 team members. And Honest Day's Work, we don't know a lot about it, what it is, but basically the idea is that they were going to act as kind of like an Angie's List, help you find service providers, but also let those service providers come into your home so you didn't have to be there. So it was kind of like if you imagine Angie's List plus Amazon's Key program. And Latch is all about access control. They do software for apartment buildings. They talked about doing some smart home stuff there, but mostly it's locks. It's hardware and access control stuff. And this way you could actually use Honest Day's Work to, it sounds kind of like a pivot. And
yeah, a little bit.
Well, we'll see. I mean, it could be that they just acquired, my theory is they acquired Honest Day's Work to acquire Jamie, who's going to become the CEO of Latch. And eventually we'll find out what their plan is. But if you have that platform for smart apartments or connected apartment buildings, and those people need dog walkers and that sort of thing, you could just easily find someone on Honest Day's Work and then send them access to your apartment at the right time. That's already built in. It'll be this own platform. But we'll see.
I'm sure most people know this, but I'll just reiterate. When Amazon bought Ring for, I cannot remember how much, but it was...
I don't think it was disclosed. It was almost $1 billion, though, is what we heard.
So I'm sure Jamie did quite well in that deal. And then I think he was at Amazon for about 5 years, probably to receive all of the payout, quite honestly.
Yeah, I was going to say, that's a long lockup period, but it's not unheard of.
It is. And you've seen a rash of new products and features in the Ring lineup since then. But I think he was done with that. And as soon as his lockup period was done, he left Amazon and started this up. And I only say it because he didn't, I don't think, make a ton of money on this deal. But he is going to become CEO of this company. And who knows where he's going to take it, right? So he's coming out ahead either way.
Yeah. I mean, new challenge, new opportunities, could be fun.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, that concludes the news segment of the show, but now it is time for you. That's right. It's the time where we hear from you, our listeners. It's the Internet of Things podcast hotline, and it is sponsored by Akenza. Create amazing IoT solutions with the Akenza low-code IoT platform, including an extensive library of device payload decoders, LoRaWAN connectivity as a service options, a dashboard composer, and more. You can try it for free today at akenza.io. That's AKENZA.io. Okay. This week, wait. Yes, I didn't tell you. If you would like to call us and get your question answered on the show, give us a call at 512-623-7424, and you will be entered to win a brand new prize. That's right. We haven't decided our July prize yet, but it'll be good. Don't worry.
It'll be awesome.
Give us a call. And we also have a winner from June. June's winner won a Keurig Smart Brewer, and that was Keith from Arizona. Congratulations,
Yay.
Keith. And you know what? This was good karma because Keith actually called and left us a review of his Bond IR controller that he had tried out. So I was like, oh, he did all the work of calling us and letting us know how it worked on his Google Home and his Madam A infrastructure. I was like, thanks, Keith.
Yeah.
So props to you. Congratulations. All right. And this week's voicemail is actually a really good one because normal people probably have this question, and it's all about working with Madam A. So let's hear it.
Hi, guys. I've been listening since you started. I've enjoyed every show. My question is very simple. When programming an Amazon, I don't know what they're called right now, you can set up an event that occurs, like a time. And I've successfully created an event for, I like to turn on at 10 o'clock. But I have multiple lights that turn on at the same time. Can I do multiple things with one trigger event? That's my question. So I'll talk to you later. Bye.
Okay. I heard this and I was like, oh, I'm 100% sure you can do that. And you can.
I was 99.9% sure.
Yeah. I was like, I think I've actually done something very similar. So the answer is yes, you can totally set up you can set up one trigger, like a time-based trigger, and you can control multiple lights. No problem, as long as those lights are all on your Madam A infrastructure. So to start this off, you're going to go to your Madam A app, and it always takes mine forever to load. You're going to go into at the bottom, there's like a menu, and hit more. It's not really a hamburger menu because, anyway, we're not going to go into that, but it's almost a hamburger menu. That says more. You hit that, and then there's a section in there that says routines. When you go to routines, you're going to hit the little plus that's in the upper corner there, and you're going to enter your routine name. They always want you to have your name first, and so I just named mine test or test time or something. And then when this happens, there's going to be a schedule button. There's voice, schedule, location, alarms, all kinds of things. You go to schedule and you have the option of picking a specific time, or you have you could do sunrise. And the cool thing about sunrise or sunset is you could actually do offsets from those. So you can do sunrise plus 15 minutes, or I often use sunset, but I use sunset minus 15 minutes.
Yeah, same here.
That's just kind of a fun thing. So you add that. And then the trickiest part about the whole thing is you're going to have to add your actions individually unless you've set up a group. So if you don't want to set up a group, then that's fine. It says add action. You'll hit the plus sign, and then you'll go into smart home. And then you can go into whatever devices you want to add. And you're going to have to do that multiple times. So
unless you've grouped them, right?
Yeah, unless you've grouped them. And then you save it all and you're done. And that's it. So you can have all of those lights turn on at the same time, and whatever that time is, or if it's related to the light, like sunset or something, if you don't want to continually go back in there as the times change and sunrise and sunset change, you can just do that. So it's easy peasy. You can do it, and it should take you probably 5 minutes, depending on how slow your Amazon app loads.
And you're not just limited to lights. I mean, you could have other devices be triggered by that sunrise or sunset event and, lock the doors or whatever else you want to do if it's a supported device in your app.
Yeah, you can do lots of things. It'll be great. You can even add services from IFT or get delivery updates at a certain time. I mean, you can do lots of this stuff. So, okay, if you have a question and you would like us to work something out for you, give us a call at 512-623-7424, and you will be entered to win a mystery prize for the month of July. And that concludes this segment of the show, but please stay tuned for our guest, JJ Lechleiter, who is in charge of the Vuforia business at PTC. We're going to be talking about what Apple's Vision Pro means for mixed reality, AR, VR in factory settings. But first, a message from our sponsor. This week's sponsor is Blink. Hey everyone, we're taking a quick break from the Internet of Things podcast for a message from our sponsor. Today's guest is Pavlo Beborodin, who is the founder and CEO of Blink. Blink is a low-code IoT software platform used by over 500,000 developers and businesses globally. So, Pavlo, thank you for joining us today. Can you tell us a little bit more about Blink?
Absolutely. Blink is a low-code IoT software platform for manufacturers of electronics goods. We provide companies with a self-serve solution for their IoT software needs, everything from a hosted private cloud and firmware libraries to white-label mobile apps and a business management dashboard. Our typical customer is a company that is great at building hardware products, but is not an expert in software and doesn't want to be one. Basically, we eliminate the need for an expensive engineering team and dealing with multiple service providers, which allows our clients to focus on their core objective, building and selling great connected products.
So maybe you could share some examples of how businesses have used all of these capabilities?
I have two favorite ones, actually. The first one is a company that builds tobacco and vape smoke detection devices for schools. When they signed up the first client in December, they only had 2 weeks while school was empty for Christmas holidays to deploy a fully working commercial solution. Their prototype was already working with Blink, and they focused on the installation itself. And in parallel, their business server was launched, mobile apps were published to the app stores, and in January, just 2 weeks later, first vaping alerts were already coming to the school stuff.
And what is your other favorite use case?
The other one is a US company that builds slick and cute AC units. When they found Blink, they had all the product and manufacturing sorted out. They even knew how the app should look like, but didn't have anything built on the software side. What really amazed me is that they had a great business team, but no engineering in-house at all. And about 4 months later, their ACs were ready to be shipped, the whole cloud infrastructure was ready and waiting for these devices online. Apps were built, with no coding by the way, and published to the app stores. Alexa and Google Home skills were ready. And now this product is a huge success.
You mentioned that they built apps without any coding. Can you tell me a little bit more about that?
Sure. Blink app is a native iOS and Android app that works in 2 modes. One is a constructor mode, and the second is a customer-facing mode. In constructor mode, you can choose from dozens of customizable UI elements like buttons, sliders, charts, maps, gauges, you name it, and then drag and drop them to the canvas to create a custom UI for your connected product. We support multiple pages, various interactions, and a ton of other features designed specifically for IoT use cases. Once the UI is ready and it works with the device, you can share it with the client, and they will be able to activate their device by connecting to the Wi-Fi network, start using it, get important alerts, share access to the device with other users, create automation scenarios, and much, much more. All of that with no coding involved. But the best part is that these apps can be branded and published to the app stores under your company name.
Excellent. So where should our listeners go to learn more about Blink?
Go to blink.io. That's blynk.io. Try the platform with a free account or get in touch through our contact form. We'd love to hear from you.
And that is Blink, blynk.io. Hey everyone, welcome back to the Internet of Things podcast. This is your host, Stacey Higginbotham, and today's guest is JJ Lechleiter, who is the general manager of the Vuforia business at PTC. Hello, JJ. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me on, Stacey.
Well, I'm really excited. And the reason why we're doing this is because earlier this month, Apple launched their Vision Pro headset. And all of a sudden, everyone was like, holy cow, mixed reality, AR, VR could be a thing. And having lived in the tech world for long enough, I'm like, is it really the time? But during the presentation, they mentioned PTC as a partner. And I know you can't go into a lot of depth here, but I would love for us to get a chance to talk about what the heck is happening with mixed reality in factory settings. So JJ, can you tell me about your history with Vuforia? I mean, it's been around for quite some time.
Yeah, absolutely. So I've been working in augmented reality, for a long time, for over 10 years. Most of that here at PTC, driving forward the Vuforia business. So for about the last 7 or 8 years, I've been leading, a team that's been producing augmented reality applications for industrial enterprises. For a long time, I led the product management organization, and most recently, I've been acting as the general manager for the entire Vuforia business as we build solutions for industrial enterprises, to benefit from the use of augmented reality, really driving workforce efficiency across the board. Before working at PTC, I was also actually part of a team at Qualcomm where the Vuforia engine business was started. So really the foundational technology that still drives the solutions today.
Okay. And it feels like a really good time to talk about, the difference between AR, VR, mixed reality, and what's actually commonly used in factory settings.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's a great question and a common topic. So there's lots of different terms to describe different really levels of immersion, different types of technology that can be deployed, for different use cases. So when we talk about augmented reality, which is the focus really of the Vuforia business at PTC, we're talking about taking digital information and displaying it in the real world, in the physical world. So as a consumer of augmented reality or a frontline worker looking to benefit from augmented reality, you actually see all of the digital information, the work instructions in the context of the environment that you're working in, so that you can see your hands, so that you can see the objects or the machinery that you may be working with, and so that you can get the benefits of that digital information, that knowledge, really in the context of everything that you're doing in your day-to-day activities in your role. And that is great for use cases where you need to be able to see your surroundings, where you're actually doing your job, where you're working with physical objects, and you need to have that presence within the physical environment. And when we talk about virtual reality, we're talking about full immersion in a virtual environment. So there's only digital information around you. You're no longer seeing your physical environment. So great technology to be applied to use cases where full immersion is helpful. Think about training where you have a fully virtual environment and it's not important to necessarily always see your physical environment, where you may not be working with physical tools and you need a fully immersive training environment to work within. And when you hear the term mixed reality, depending on who you're talking to, it can mean different things, but typically it means the combination of augmented reality and virtual reality together, so that you're kind of jumping back and forth between AR, between VR. But really, you will see these terms used interchangeably at times. Sometimes when you talk to different companies, they'll say mixed reality when they're really talking about augmented reality. At the end of the day, regardless of the technology that we're using, we're talking about the combination of digital information displayed for people, to some end in a physical environment.
Because we are the Internet of Things podcast, I think it's probably really important to talk about how this gets used and why this is relevant in a factory or a warehouse, some sort of industrial setting. When I think about it, I think about, we're dealing with all of this information today, and we need a better way to display it than like a tablet necessarily. So I'm curious, PTC did this acquisition a long time ago, has really been pushing this concept of AR in factory settings. What is it being used for, and why are they pushing so hard?
Yeah, so the combination of augmented reality with IoT is incredibly powerful. So imagine for a moment that you have a frontline worker, on the floor using either a tablet, or digital eyewear. And they need to troubleshoot an issue. And there's an issue, with the machine on the line that they're operating. Instead of shutting down the machine, going and tracking down someone who can help support it, the downtime that's going to delay the line, they can use an augmented reality solution to very quickly, pick up that tablet, point it at the machine, understand where the issue exists because it's connected and because augmented reality is technology to guide them to the component, or the issue that they need to solve, and then they can quickly troubleshoot and solve that problem. And they may be able to do it themselves. They may not even need someone else's help. They have access to the information that can support them in that procedure.
Okay. And here you mentioned either a tablet or a headset. Is there an example where like a headset becomes more important than a tablet?
Yeah, absolutely. So typically, when you have procedures that are going to involve, they're going to be longer, more detailed, and are going to require you to be using both of your hands while you follow it. That's a great candidate for digital eyewear because you can keep your hands free and use your voice to control the interface while you're actually performing the procedure. When you have something that's quicker or something where you're using augmented reality as a reminder or a quick troubleshooting step, then a tablet is completely sufficient.
I feel like I have been hearing about this for like half a decade, maybe even a whole decade. I don't even know. It's been a long time. And I've tried various headsets and I've tried various tablet experiences, both in personal settings, like moving furniture around my house, and also like HoloLens and industrial settings. And there's two issues. There's the end user experience, and then there's the challenge of getting the data in there in the first place. So I'm going to let you tackle whichever one you would like to answer first. But when we're talking about why this isn't quite mainstream yet, is it the user experience that's the issue, or is it the challenge of getting the data in place first?
Yeah. So both of those reasons are, at the core of advancements that will drive the adoption of augmented reality. On the one hand, the user experience is very tightly tied to the devices, the capabilities of the devices that we have in the market. The more capable those get, the lighter weight they get, the longer they last, the better the user experiences, the visuals, and the interface, the further we're going to be able to drive adoption, which is what makes announcements like the Vision Pro, so exciting for the industry. Another step forward, on some of those dimensions. And that's a journey that's taken time. That's why you've been hearing about it for a long time. As the technology evolves and improves and continues to do so, that's going to mean very good things for the adoption of augmented reality. And you'll see it deployed for more use cases and used more broadly. But the other challenge is really, really important too. And that's really where companies like PTC come into play. And I like to think about that as solving the problem of providing the 3D content that's needed for augmented reality to end users and doing that at scale. Because for our customers, industrial enterprises that are looking to use augmented reality in manufacturing or service and training use cases, they have a lot of content. They have a lot of different training procedures that they need to provide, or a lot of different machines to use augmented reality on. It's not feasible for them to just create all of that content one by one. They'll never reach scale. So where we really focus is creating that bridge, or what we refer to as the digital thread, between augmented reality and other critical business systems, like maybe a PLM, a product lifecycle management system, that already has all of that 3D data upstream. And by building out that digital thread, we can utilize the product data, the design data for those products that exists already, to create automatically the procedural AR data experiences that a worker is going to consume downstream. So we're taking that approach to really helping to solve that content problem that can also that is critical to driving the adoption of AR going forward. And I think as the reason that this has taken some time, as you pointed out, is that there's just been advancements in the hardware, advancements in the software, and really a maturing posture by enterprises, really, in terms of their readiness for digital transformation and their adoption of the solutions and the technology together.
So then I have to ask, do you think Vision Pro changes the equation or helps push the industry towards a tipping point? And I know it's not even out yet, but based on what we know now, do you think this is a game changer for bringing AR into the factory?
Yeah, absolutely. I think this is a big moment for the augmented reality industry. Honestly, in full transparency, I haven't personally even had a chance to put the device on yet, but I'm really looking forward to giving it a try. It's obviously a big positive signal for the entire market to have Apple committing to this space. We've seen historically, when they've entered spaces, the type of momentum that has been generated. And I think that the same, will be true in this case. And through our collaboration, and as we illustrated publicly, during the keynote, it is a great device for collaboration and design share, like you saw live during the keynote. And, the most important thing really is that this is revitalizing or bringing forward the topic of AR for a lot of new companies. They're getting excited about the possibilities of technology, and companies like PTC are there ready and waiting to talk about the use cases where we're already seeing deployments and value being generated today.
And let's talk about use cases, because training is the most popular. I've actually done several training videos for like putting wires as part of an airplane wing and other really strange demos through AR on these headsets. Is that the primary use case today? And what are the ones that are actually being implemented?
Yeah, so training is I'd say is a whole category of use cases, and we've had the benefit over those 10 plus years of seeing a lot of different customer use cases, and formed a pretty clear opinion on the use cases that we're seeing the most adoption of today. And these are use cases in the factory, for example, for end-of-line inspection, where you can actually use a tablet at the end of the line to inspect a large piece of equipment in augmented reality and some AI technology that we've developed to actually inspect and understand if something's been assembled correctly and understand where it wasn't, and to give immediate guidance and feedback to the frontline worker that's performing the inspection to get it right. Saving money, reducing scrap, lots of really tangible benefits. But inspection is a very focused use case at the end of the line in a factory. Another great one is, in service scenarios where we have technicians that are servicing complex equipment, to use augmented reality and that digital thread connectivity that I spoke about earlier to actually understand where the specific component is that they need to service. Because there can be many similar components or many of the same component in a large machine. It could be hard to find, could be small, but AR is a spatial technology that can use location to highlight and provide instruction around a small part or a complex service procedure. So in the factory and out in the field, we see that use case. We see more and more augmented reality operational manuals created and distributed by machine builders. These are companies that produce machines and sell them into operators in the factory so that they can have augmented instruction manuals for the operation of a machine in a factory. And within a broadly a training arena, we see that basically you can capture expertise, you can programmatically generate expertise, but for training on the job, training ahead of a specific task, ahead of a service visit, AR is highly valuable. And maybe lastly, one really interesting area that we see a lot of interest in augmented reality is actually in pharma. With companies like Merck that are looking to use augmented reality and are using augmented reality to support key use cases for the production of their drugs, like line changeover or line clearance, where it's very important to follow specific regulations to perform those tasks correctly. Augmented reality can help ensure that things are done correctly and help companies like Merck provide documentation that the task has been performed.
For those of us who haven't experienced life in a headset, can you walk them through what that might be for the worker on the line? Like, you're not wearing this all day. Maybe I'm coming on a shift for a couple hours to do a particular job. What is that experience like? And then what am I actually seeing that's helpful to me through the headset?
Yeah, absolutely. So, the first thing that's important to understand here is that there are several different types of headsets. So there's very lightweight headsets that are designed to provide critical information, sometimes with just a small screen that sits in front of one of your eyes, that are built in such a way that they're designed to be worn for longer periods of time, used all day, and only provide information as it's relevant, kind of in the context of a display. Think like if you had a phone sort of sitting about a foot or two in front of your face, but attached to a headset, voice activated. A good example of this is the devices from a company called RealWear. They design these devices to be used for long shifts, provide critical information when a frontline worker needs it. And then on the other end of the spectrum, there's augmented reality devices like the Microsoft HoloLens that are designed to provide fully overlaid digital information that appears in the context of your environment. Naturally, based on, state of the art today, these devices are a little bit bigger than the devices like the RealWear. And so you see different use cases sort of gravitate to the different form factors, based on the parameters of the device, based on the sort of peripheral vision that the frontline worker may have when they put a device on their head, and based on things like, weight and comfort and battery life. And so, when you're on the lighter end of the spectrum, you might pop one of these RealWear devices onto your hard hat and leave it on there all day and forget it's there, kind of using the capabilities that's provided there when you need it. With the fully immersive devices, you're probably putting it on in the context of a job that you need support with, performing that task, and then you might go and hang it up, on the wall, in the factory to be grabbed and charged and used again when the next task arises or the next shift worker comes in to pick it up. So you see some different behaviors start to emerge based on the focus of the device and some of the attributes that surround them.
And then the experience, though, in the context, for example, of pharma and complying with regulations or inspection, what is happening as a worker? Am I looking through either a lightweight headset, or what am I checking off against? Like, what does that look like to me?
Yeah, in the case of pharma, we actually typically see the tablets as the primary form factor there. Following procedures related to the line, a series of steps, documenting, checking off, and providing input back into the system so that sort of confirmation can be used upstream. But it's a great example of a use case that can be fully fulfilled based on phones and tablets today.
You mentioned bringing AI into this, and I would love to hear how you're seeing your customers use AI and AR. And I don't know if I can throw any more A's in there, but sure. How is this changing the factory environment today?
Yeah. AI is really a powerful and complementary, technology to augmented reality, because we can help our customers make decisions, provide them guidance while we're providing the visual information and guidance that you already received through augmented reality. So we're equally investing in AI advancements. In fact, we released a capability commercially just last month at LiveWorks that we call Step Check. This is AI that can actually help a frontline worker in a factory, back to this inspection use case, that is performing an inspection, can tell them when a step has been performed correctly or not using vision. That cable is actually not fully connected, for example. And as we are working through the release of this functionality we call Step Check, we worked with several different beta customers. And one of the customers we worked with, they're called Magna Exteriors. And we worked with the division at Magna. They're an automotive supplier. And so a fascia for a front of a vehicle, like a Lincoln Navigator, for example, has hundreds of different points of connection, different cords that are plugged in, different bolts that are fastened to this fascia that need to be performed correctly. And they're very good at their end of the line inspection, where that part is inspected and passed along. But Step Check is a technology that can help and complement that frontline worker in the context of the job they're already doing, to tell them when something isn't quite connected correctly, for example. So it uses vision to guide them in conjunction with the augmented reality context that's already provided. And by doing that, we can save customers like Magna from shipping a part off the line that may not be assembled 100% correctly, because some of those connections are critical. If they're not done right, the whole part can be scrapped at the end of the day, or needs to be scrapped. So AI, in this case, is we're collecting imagery of what these correctly performed assemblies look like, and then training them in the cloud and using that information then to tell the frontline worker when it's been done correctly. So the combination of two technologies is really important.
Got it. I probably need that in my day-to-day life. I guess I use Grammarly for checking my connections and seeing if they're accurate when I'm writing. And sometimes it works. All right. JJ, thank you so much for coming on the show this week. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Stacey, for having me.
Okay, so thanks everyone for listening to this week's Internet of Things podcast. I really appreciate it, as does Kevin. And if you want to find out more information on the Internet of Things, you can find it at my free weekly newsletter that comes out every Friday. You can sign up for that at www.stacyoniot.com/newsletter. Or you can just visit the website for all of those stories published a little bit later. Thanks for listening and have a great week.